Okay, so welcome back to the China Day 2021. A warm welcome to my distinguished panelists and all the participants who will join us in our discussion about different ways towards a CO2 neutral economy in China and Germany, and the related opportunities and challenges, but also the differences and maybe also similarities. We will discuss in English. The session will be in English, but if you prefer to follow it in Chinese, then please switch to the Chinese language channel. I'm very happy to welcome my distinguished guests, and I would like to start with Ms. Sui Xiaowen, General Manager of Goldwind Europe. She has been with Goldwind, which is actually now the largest wind turbine supplier worldwide in 2010, and is responsible for the Europe business development as well as the global key account management of Goldwind. Actually, maybe not to everybody known is that Goldwind is headquartered in Beijing, but also does have a kind of German aspect about it because it acquired Wensys, a German-based technology firm, in 2008 with a very specific technology, as I know, the permanent magnet direct drive technology, right? Yeah, so it's a little bit the largest or the third largest. It always depends on the data actually you use, but definitely on the top level. Thank you for joining us today, Ms. Sue.
Thank you.
As a second guest, I would like to welcome Mr. Ni Zhijun. He's since the beginning of 2020 the General Manager of Baosteel Europe. He has a rather international career within the Baosteel Group, as I know, and he was joining this, he came to this position from another position as president for Baosteel in America. So he's very familiar in the international arena, and Baosteel actually, or the China Bao Group, is the largest steel producer, not just in China, but worldwide, overtaking ArcelorMittal for the first time in 2020 with around a production volume of 150 million tons of steel. Actually, 7 of the 10 top steel producers are at the moment based in China. Welcome, Mr. Ni.
Very pleased to be here.
Thank you. And last but not least, I would also like to welcome Mr. Jörg Wuttke. He's joining us today as a Vice President and Chief Representative of BASF China from Beijing. Welcome, Mr. Wuttke. He joined BASF in 1997 and has been responsible for helping guide the company's investment strategies and also negotiating large projects. We will talk about some in the following discussion. And since 2019, I have to mention that he's also the president of the EU Chamber of Commerce in China, not just for the first time, but for the third time. It's already his third term. So welcome to Beijing. Yeah, so actually, I think we are in a good starting point to discuss this complex topic of different ways towards a CO2 neutral economy in China and Germany, and how to achieve this, and maybe what kind of participation or contribution can come from the business side. Because we have panelists joining from Beijing, from Munich, and also from myself from Shanghai. By the way, my name is Corinne Abele. I'm the head of the trade section of Germany Trade and Invest in Shanghai. Well, if we talk about ways to reach carbon neutrality, we basically have to look at the different goals formulated of the countries. And there are ambitious goals out today. While China aims, for example, to peak its CO2 emissions before 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality by 2060, Germany has raised the climate targets to reduce emissions by 65% compared to 1990 by 2030 already, and achieve climate neutrality by 2045. The question, we all can say they are very ambitious, these goals and targets, but the question is, how realistic are these goals from a business perspective? And I would like to discuss a little bit this part of the discussion, so from your point of view. And I would like to start with Ms. Sui. So what is your opinion about these different targets? Are they realistic? Do you think that they are achievable? And what does that mean for your business?
Thank you. Basically, from my point of view, if the government of China is really put these targets actually in the, we call it 5 years plan, it's definitely achievable. I believe that China, normally we are used in this way to set up a goal and then to give a very clear approach, then we achieve the target. So from the business point of view, like Goldwind, we are the wind turbine manufacturer, but actually we engaged in this renewable industry for more than 20 years. So we understand how important for the renewable industry, and we are get ready to meet this challenge, especially for Goldwind. We present actually in Europe since 2008. So we learned actually from Europe, especially from Germany, about the how to meet the climate change, how to really deal with the carbon neutrality, because we understand that for EU, the carbon neutrality going to be 2050. It's in any case earlier than China. So we have this experience, and we are really in the right position to learn and also to prepare by ourselves to ready to meet the target and the goals.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wuttke, would you agree on that as from an international business perspective in China?
Well, Corinna, thank you for inviting me. Before I start answering the question, let me just make a little commercial here. First of all, I would like to congratulate the Chinese Chamber in Germany for the success story. Remotely, I was 15 years with Ambassador Ma and then Schumingde behind the screen, trying to help on the articles, the bylaws, and so forth. And it's really, it feels like it's a wonderful grow-up process. By the way, also for the Chinese chamber in Europe, we need Chinese voice in Europe and in Germany in particular, which is not political, but which is really the voice of business. So very happy about this. That's why I contribute today. Well, when it comes to this kind of Germany and China, first of all, it's very important to understand that actually the targets are as they are, but as a company, we have to be ambitious, we have to be credible, we have to walk the talk, no greenwash, and many companies try to greenwash it. But I think for us, it's a license to operate in order to be genuinely interested, not only to follow the targets, but actually possibly even beat them. And I give you one example from my own company. We are the largest chemical company in the world. Our headquarters in Ludwigshafen, which is the largest industrial complex in Europe. And Ludwigshafen alone requires the energy of the entire state of Denmark. So you can see the challenge that we are facing. We have developed in Germany a concept of Verbund, which means synergies in infrastructure, logistics, raw materials, waste heat from one plant is used as energy for the other plant. We have byproducts that are feedstock for another plant. In Ludwigshafen, it's about 300 factories densely packed next to each other in order to achieve that. And of course, this helps us tremendously to be more sustainable, more cleaner, but also, frankly, it saves us a lot of money. It saved us 19.2 million megawatt of hours of electricity, and it brings us the advantage of having nearly 4 million metric tons of CO2 emission less. But this is just the beginning. This is history. The future is here in Guangdong, in Zhanjiang, where we're building a new Verbund site. Eventually, I guess it will be above 30, 40 plants. It's a $10 billion investment, which we signed in the presence of Merkel and Premier Li Keqiang and in 2018. And we are actually going beyond of what we're doing in Germany. We are fully digitalized, and we have an implementation of smart manufacturing that we don't have anywhere else in the world. So we are putting basically the best technology here because we think not only it helps for the environmental impact, but also for competitiveness reason. We have a smart manufacturing concept which comes up with cutting edge technologies. Otherwise, you cannot achieve this to reduce our environmental impact. And then, of course, very important is the big data analysis and the real-time monitoring, which will come up with a 5G system, which optimizes our energy consumption, reduces waste, improves plant reliability. We start up with the first plant next year. And in order to overcome the first step, we have first company in Guangdong that actually signed a renewable electricity deal, 100% in March, and it's driven by the Guangdong government. And we're very privileged to have that. It's a cool 400 megawatt that we get in the first instance. So what I'm trying to say is that, you know, in Germany we have developed it, but in China we drive it further. We have a wonderful ground in order to have that. We have the market, we have the government that wants to go along with this, as well as we have partners in China like Huawei and others that actually can help us doing this one. And again, this electricity deal that we have just done with Guangdong in March, we learned from Germany, and that's full circle. We signed a deal like this many years ago with RWE on green electricity. So both countries can actually synergize.
That's a wonderful example, and I thought that we are going to discuss that a little bit in detail afterwards. Also, what kind of different technologies are required, maybe, and also how the cross-industry cooperation can work together, not just cross countries, but also cross industries. So, but from your point of view, as I see with this huge project going on, I think you have some trust that China can reach the climate goals it has formulated, or at least you're willing to contribute to that with these projects.
Well, I mean, sorry for taking so much time, but Madame Sui is completely right. China normally sets targets which it fulfills, which just pinpoints that, you know, not overshooting. But I think this time is a bit different. I think the 5-year plan is not really geared towards 2060. I think the president has caught his ministries by surprise. And that's why the European Chamber will come up in March next year before the NPC with a new study about 2060, the pathway to get there, because we think China has to front load it much faster. So again, 2060 carbon neutral, I guess that can be achieved. 2030, I guess, is slightly too late. And we will come up with technology suggestions. You know, after all, China normally is very ambitious and can beat even their own deadlines and targets.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. So, yeah, Mr. Ni, I learned that you're also a direct neighbor of BASF in Guangdong, right? And I also learned from the newspapers that Baosteel Group has also formulated his carbon neutrality goals, if I do understand that, also to reach, if I do understand that correctly, by 2050.
2023, yes.
Yeah, the peak in 2023, but neutrality in 2050, right?
Correct.
So I would also be interested how you do view the goals, maybe in the two countries, because from your position as responsible for the Europe market, you could maybe also, compare a little bit these goals and what does that mean for your business approach. Thank you.
Yes, correct. For this target, it's challenging. It will be very tough, you know, for the next, for the coming years. But we think it's realistic to reach. Especially, China produced more than 50% of steel globally during these years, and the steel industry is ranked number 2 for the carbon emission in China. But we may keep in mind that during last 40 years for steel industry, the energy consumption per metric ton consumed, more than almost 50% of coal decrease. That means it took 40 years to have carbon emission decrease for 50%. So we think it's realistic, not only for Bao Group, also for Chinese steel industry can reach the target that be set either by enterprise themselves, also the strategy set by the nation.
And how would you like to reach, or what kind of projects and measures do you have to reach this goal, actually, peak 2023 and neutrality 2050? What kind of technology is playing a major role, or do you also see maybe a more technology more fitting to the Chinese market, or another technology more fitting to the German market?
We are just moving ahead step by steps within short to midterm. Externally, we try to improve the concentration ratio through further merger and acquisition. For Bao Group, we expect to achieve 200 million metric tons of steel capacity soon, with a market share about like 20% in China. Internally, we'd like to, through reorganization, upgrade the facility, maximize the production, and improve the efficiency. We think all these approaches will benefit the lower carbon emission. Second, through technology and innovation. Currently, Bao Group has already set up 2 platforms. One is for long process of blast furnace with carbon cycle. Another is a short process of DRI. These are totally, technology innovation. And the third, we are currently already invest in upstream and downstream, such as Bao Group clean energy platform, like solar power, wind power, renewable power, hydrogen. Just 2 months ago, in this July, Bao Group has already established an investment fund with amount of 10 billion RMB that will focus on carbon neutrality field.
Yeah, I read that also with a huge interest. I think this is an interesting approach, and as I know, is also you are working on the energy mix you use within the steel production, right?
Correct.
And to acquire or to purchase actually, energy efficient steel, maybe we can put it like this, or under the topic green steel, right? We are not there. We are working towards there. Is also a main topic for a wind turbine supplier. As Ms. Sui explained, that steel is actually one of the main raw materials you are used to build up, for example, the tower, and also some chemical polymer composites also for the blades, for example. So if you want to go greener, more carbon neutral as a turbine producer, a wind turbine producer, you have to look at this one. So I would like to ask Ms. Sui how you do address this issue within your production sites for your turbines. Ms. Sui.
Well, Goldwind, actually, we are starting we call it product environmental product declaration starting from 2009. Well, this is mainly actually required by our client, mainly from the big utilities like RWE. And now that Goldwind, we are qualified to work with this kind of customer. So one of the very important sustainability factor is we have to make sure that our product is kind of a environmental product. That means we have to make the declaration on each key components during the entire life cycle, from the raw material to the manufacture to transportation, erection, and then 20 years operation, decommissioning. The entire life cycle, how the influence, the impact for the environment. So for that case, so Goldwind, we made that kind of the analysis and also audited by the third party from Europe. The outcome is mainly to show that 70% actually from the emission, the most emission actually from the manufacturing process. And the tower really take a huge petrol percentage on that part. So if today we can have a really kind of the green steel for the tower perspective, it can be contribute, I would say, a lot for the final performance of our entire product for the wind turbine. This wind turbine is not only for Goldwind, I mean for the entire the supply chain and for all the OEMs going to be benefit from that. That is definitely for sure. Yeah.
How would you judge the role of wind energy as a contribution to energy mix, right? Mr. Woodcock just mentioned that the site was able, right, to make one of the first contracts actually about renewable energy, because this is actually at the moment, we also have these questions from German companies. They are willing to switch as they can to renewable energy, but it's not available. Actually, it's not yet there in China. So how do you think are the contribution you can make, or what would you suggest? What kind of additional market corrections maybe have to be done in order to fully utilize the potential of wind energy in a renewable energy mix in China? And the situation a bit different in Germany. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say the most challenge for wind power is mainly for the stability. I mean, especially for the grid. Sometimes if there's no wind and then there's no contribution. But I would say today the technology really driven a lot. I mean, for the renewables. Today is not only wind, so we have actually a very neutral business mode, let's say for wind, solar plus storage. So all these kind of things can really make the grid connection more stable. On the other hand, because of the technology, we understand there a certain contribution for the hydrogen. This is a quite hot topic right now. So for Goldwind, we have several I would say we went to hydrogen projects in China, and also we make some pilot industry the test actually in Australia. Today we understand that if we really can make the skilled cost efficiency, I would say, is mainly should contribute from the offshore. Onshore, because the scale normally is quite limited. 15 megawatt is already kind of the big project, I mean, for wind. But if we really want to work combined with wind and hydrogen, we need a big project. I mean, offshore today is definitely a right direction. And Goldwind, we also work with several the oil giants who also have the target to work from the offshore perspective, not only in China, but also China, for example, in Germany. If I remembered well, in Germany, for the annual installation for wind last year in 2020, half from offshore, half from onshore, I mean, each 1 gigawatt. So that means Germany already really ready for this offshore development. For Goldwind, today we are not that ready to step into the European market for offshore, but we are on the way, and we see very huge market and possibilities to combine to do the offshore projects together with hydrogen, especially in German market, I would say.
Thank you very much. There are also already first pilot projects here in Germany, right? For example, I think the Wind H project with steel giants like Skitter and Linde involved. This is a kind of hydrogen project also for the steel industry. So I would like also to ask Mr. Nie how he thinks about, I mean, hydrogen is a very hot topic. What role does hydrogen actually play in this changing energy mix in the steel industry? And how do you see the possibilities maybe and also the opportunities in the two markets? There are first pilot projects out, but it's just at the beginning, I think.
Correct. For hydrogen application in steel industry, it just stays the very beginning stage. Internally for Bao Group, just I introduced the two platforms we are currently exploring try to using hydrogen. That is maybe the final solution for neutrality 2050 for our group. So on the one hand, we are trying to finally using the hydrogen to reach this 2050 neutrality. And on the other hand, we are trying to invest facility to produce hydrogen either by ourselves or either with some partnership in China, like Mitsui, Goldwind, similar like these kind of professional third parties.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wuttke, do you also see room for cooperation in this kind of field, right? Because I mean, at the moment, we have a lot of hydrogen, right? It's coming from the chemistry industry, but it's not what we call the green or blue hydrogen. So, but actually some of the first hydrogen projects and also stations actually are built up with the support of the chemical parks here. I mean, I'm here from Shanghai, and the largest tank station, basically hydrogen, has been initiated together with the chemical industrial park. So how do you see this opportunity, maybe also in respect to the new site, or how you structure new projects? Thank you.
Well, let me first say that by a funny twist of the organization choosing the three of us, as a matter of fact, Madame Sway needs more green steel and she needs more green chemicals. For us, as we're supplying actually to Goldwind polymers and coating, of course, every endeavor we sometimes do with Goldwind together in order to achieve the kind of more greener coating and polymers that we envisage in order to reduce our carbon footprint. I just also wanted to add that actually BASF just last month concluded a deal in Holland on the North Sea. We bought nearly 50% of a wind park offshore, also very important, in order to generate green electricity for us. After all, it was 300 billion euro, and we will fully engage. It will at the end be 1.6 billion euro, and we start to get it off and running in 2023. So again, one of those things where you normally don't expect a chemical industry in order to be a major investor in a wind park offshore. On hydrogen, well, that's a very important feedstock for many chemical production processes. And to achieve the CO2-free production of hydrogen, BASF is pursuing presently two processes in parallel. One is the commercially available water electrolysis, and the second one is the methane pyrolysis, which we are trying to endeavor in order to eventually produce hydrogen on a CO2-free basis. So we have we're on the cusp of having a new process technology available at one stage, but you never know how that all ends up. And again, I think in this discussion today, and also for us, everything in order to get more green depends on corporations. Again, our cooperating with Baosteel in Zhejiang as our neighbor, with Goldwind, then we have with Siemens Energy on this kind of electrical heat pumps in order to make our waste heat recovery much better. We work with SABIC and Linde in order to realize a pilot furnace in order to have a CO2 production of basic chemicals. And in Antwerp on the North Sea, we are building now the largest carbon capture storage project under the North Sea in order to avoid 1 million metric tons of CO2 emissions. Again, something we hope to achieve in 2022. Everything we do cannot be done alone. It needs partnership and ambitious companies that can go with you.
Thank you. I mean, I think in this discussion it's very clear nothing can be reached alone, definitely. You have to reach it together. That's true for the companies, that's true for company cooperation, but that's also true for cooperation on an international level, maybe also working together in certain projects on government related projects. I mean, as far as I remember, in April, we did have the consultation, the Sino-German government consultations, and one point definitely on the agenda, everybody we agreed on that we should strengthen cooperation in climate research with the goal of climate neutrality. So this also also stresses the importance of cooperation on different levels and different size. My question would be, maybe I could start shortly. I don't know who wants to answer. You gave us a lot of examples for these cooperations, successful cooperations, but what would you say is a challenge maybe to realize these cooperations? What would you wish maybe a better to change in the structure or in the framework in order to give maybe different incentives to businesses to really invest into this future industry, and more maybe also to give different incentives to cooperate? So who would like to maybe elaborate a little bit on this point? Mr. Ni or Mr. Wuke or Mr.
Well, let me maybe start with this one. Again, cooperation between Goldwind and Baosteel and BASF is certainly not because we have all blue eyes, in my case at least. But actually, we all want to have a competitive advantage. We want to make more money, more cleaner. And hence we work together. It's very often perceived to be a government-to-government action. As a matter of fact, we always have to consider the market demand and the market-driven areas, processes which drive us. And that's why it's important the governments talk, it's important for the regulatory environment, but at the end of the day, the market drives us in order to be cleaner. And that's why it gets difficult these days, because there's a strong tendency about decoupling. That's a real challenge for us. The European Chamber made a study in January about the damage that decoupling does between China, the US, and Europe. But there it is. It's a Buy America, which was started. There is a distinctive Buy China. And we can see also that Europe is turning a little bit more protectionist. And that's the last thing we need, because the companies have to go into a global pool of knowledge and have to have open borders in order to generate the technologies that climate change requires. So in a funny twist, we turn protectionist as the worst possible moment. For us, I think chambers are very important to voice that. Hence, I hope that the Chinese chamber in Germany does its part. Definitely, I'm very noisy over here.
So yeah, that's a direct, maybe Mr. Ni, you want to directly.
Yes, internally, Baosteel, exploring all the measures to just cut the carbon emission from our steel production. And on the other hand, we are invest by ourselves on the upstream the downstream, and to create the synergy for the whole supply chain of steel to decrease this carbon emission. But that is not enough. Although we are the leading steel mill globally, but we need to have more cooperation from those professional parties. Currently, we have very strong support, from domestically in China. We cooperate, with local other suppliers, but that is not enough, especially regarding this promotion of carbon neutrality, where we understand that European Union is a pioneer in this field, and just like you introduced, the pilot, steel mill in Germany that realized between Salzgitter and Linde. We recognize, or we understanding that as a necessary international cooperation between Bow Group and other global players, especially from steel industry in Europe. So that's one of my key job, here to promote the cooperation between our company and advanced companies here in Europe, in Germany. So we understand that responding to climate change is a shared responsibility for the world. So protectionism, is not, healthy for this common target. And although there's a trade or technology conflict among major countries currently, but it's a common understanding between these major countries to fight against climate change. So it's kind of encouraging factors, for the business like us to promote this kind of especially international cooperation.
Thank you very much. To stress the point that technology has to come together, knowledge has to come together in order to really realize these and meet and achieve these ambitious targets, which are ambitious. As Mr. Wuttke also already pointed out, we have to speed up and speed up quickly, and maybe the necessary incentives should be out. Maybe, Ms. Sui, how do you see that from your perspective? I mean, as a wind turbine supplier founded in Xinjiang, your headquarters is now in Beijing, right? If we look at the international rising complexity of the situation and tensions, and how do you try to manage the risks involved under this in these times?
Well, this is a very, frequent questions currently that bring either from the customers or even from other stakeholders, I would say, to asking Goldwind that we are, as a Xinjiang company, how we can do the biggest challenge for the international business. Well, actually, there is no doubt, Goldwind, we are born from Xinjiang because Xinjiang is definitely the best wind resources, have the best wind resources in China. That's why Goldwind, we are born, start up from Xinjiang. After 20 years, now we have the headquarters in Beijing and also brand out to the international markets. For Goldwind, actually, we are working on the sustainability for many years, not only for the environmental perspective, but also for the human rights, labor rights, and also for the sustainability supply chain, business ethics. All these parts, that's Goldwind, we are putting so many efforts for a long-lasting years. So when we meet this kind of the challenge, actually, it's not really impact a lot for international business, because for Goldwind, we have a very systematic the regulation in the company for the entire group. It doesn't matter the manufacturing the facilities in Xinjiang or not in Xinjiang. Today, we still have the facilities in Xinjiang. We have our employees because we have huge of the wind fleet currently in Xinjiang because the best wind resources in any case. So we have the service team, we have the local employees. But in Goldwind, like a company, we have a very strict and very clear regulation on the labor right, on the human rights, on the in the real practice, how we make sure that all these regulations are correct conducted, not only in Goldwind itself, but also we give the influence for our suppliers as well, because in Goldwind today we call it tier 1 suppliers. That means Goldwind signed the contract directly with the suppliers. We have 352 suppliers, 80% from China. And because of Goldwind, we have kind of the outstanding position in China that we can really drive together, work together, engage together with our suppliers. We have a very clear the code of conduct with suppliers, and also we have the annual assessment with our suppliers, not on the quality perspective, but also on the sustainability. So all these activities that make sure Goldwind, when we work with the international clients or do the international business, we are fully in line with the requirement. Especially Goldwind, we joined the UNGC in May, that we fully support the 10 principles for the sustainability. So this is yes, please.
So may I just ask the new supply chain law, right, which is out here in Germany. So will it make your international business or in Europe more complicated, or you think no, actually we are fully prepared and we can deal with that?
Yeah, we're fully prepared. Especially we are working with the third party, the auditor from France as well, to make the audit on Goldwind, the due diligence, especially on the sustainability perspective on 4 parts, like mentioned in environment, business ethics, sustainable supply chain, and human rights. So for all these 4 parts, we are currently under the audit, and we hope that the final result can give a fully support to make the evidence to all the stakeholders to show that Goldwind, it doesn't matter where we born from Xinjiang, or whether we have business in Xinjiang or not. This is not a business issue. Like as a business, Goldwind, we are healthy and we get prepared to all the challenges we're going to meet. Yes.
Thank you.
Maybe, Corinna, let me just add to this. BASF has 2 plants in Xinjiang, in Korla, between Urumqi and Kashgar. And of course, we have been challenged by NGOs, by parliamentarians, as well as by capital markets. Luckily, I think we have done our homework already in end of 2019. Myself, we had an auditor report done, external auditor report, with which I went to Germany and Brussels in January, February 2020, my last 2 trips to Europe. So we could prove that actually we have done the right things. We have a supply chain that we sort of can control. And most important also was transparency. And as you know, we had one of your Shanghai-based colleagues at our plant last month. ARD was there, as well as the Handelsblatt. And I think it's just very important that actually the Chinese government also has to realize that we are under tremendous pressure from third parties elsewhere, and we have to prove it, and we need these kind of guys to go around if we say we're clean, nobody believes us in the first place. We have to prove it. The Lieferkettengesetz is going to be a real challenge. BASF feels, frankly, that we're not there yet. We have to see what the impact is when it comes into fruition in 2023. It leaves us about 16 months in order to do our homework. But certainly what it means more administration, more challenges, and really also the point that big companies like mine or Goldwind or Baosteel might actually shed small suppliers and small customers, because it is a tedious work to audit everyone. And that might actually have a very negative impact on in particular small companies, SMEs. And so the Lieferkettengesetz is a double-edged sword.
Thank you. Thank you for just jumping in, because I also just wanted to pass the question on to you. So yeah, but we agree on that as you mentioned, transparency is very important, but as a company, you have to be ready for the transparency, which means a lot of administration work, and you have to be ready answer all the questions, which makes it maybe not more complicated, but maybe it takes more time to prepare everything, right? And if we were also talking about that technology-wise cooperation is needed, right, to enable in the different industry, bring the technologies to the right industries. That could also be maybe more complex, more difficult with all the different sanction lists where you have to very carefully look around how you manage these rising risks in international cooperation. I just wanted finally come to 2 points, but a short answer I would like to have. We were discussing about we are moving all into the right direction, but maybe not fast enough. And carbon pricing is one of the tools always mentioned from different countries. China just opened what could be potentially the largest emission trading scheme or market, right? It's not that they're starting with the energy sector, but I heard steel and chemicals are just around the corner, right? So I would like to just also hear your opinion on carbon pricing. Is it an effective tool, or what would be needed to direct the market maybe more efficiently or faster in the right direction? But because of time, I would like for some short answers maybe. Maybe we start with Mr. Ni, and then.
Yes, correct. This is a fundamental change, regarding this carbon tariff or carbon price. Yes, China has already released this carbon exchange this July, start from electric power industry, and following, we think steel industry will be the next, since carbon emission from steel industry in China ranks number 2, of the total portion. And also, we are following EU regulations. It will be, formally start since 2026. And for exporters like Bao Group, we need to, register since 2023. So now the time framework is very limited. For Bao Group. We need to work more harder and push forward to have a very clear, carbon emission decrease soon.
Thank you. Maybe Mr. Wuttke, would you add something? I did understand that the Chinese scheme is more focusing on reducing the intensity actually of emission generation rather than the absolute emissions. If you compare it, for example, with the EU scheme, but does that what kind of difference does that make, or do you think this scheme is a tiger and can bite yet or not? How do you see it?
Oh, we see baby steps, as Mr. Ni pointed out. It's barely 4 weeks old. Hyperactive first day, and basically now it's low or practically nil. And the government is trying to steer it and see what happens. And again, the idea of the Chinese government is not to have big trading volumes, but as a matter of fact, find a mechanism in order to reduce emissions. And they try with the power stations that Mr. Ni mentioned, but at the same time, I'm sure they have to add other industries. And, you know, as we're sitting at this panel, I think chemicals and steel always apply first and foremost. And it could happen in 2022. And so the system is evolving, and it really depends also on the green finance abilities, how that can be structured. Carbon's futures, for example, should play a role in this one. And of course, for us, cross-border is going to be interesting to see how Europe and China reconcile the kind of price difference that we have seen, more than 50 in Europe and I think between 5 and 10 in China yet. And you know, this mechanism, that carbon border mechanism, which is being discussed, definitely is bringing many, many challenges for us. So in a way, we're all convinced we have to do something, but you know, doing something might also lead to mistakes and to additional costs. So anyhow, we should have more sessions like this to discuss this. I'm very hopeful, but it's going to be a long march.
Yeah, maybe we just started yet, right? And I mean, there are also some lessons maybe to be learned from the EU scheme, right? Which is longer around and has a little bit different approach. So exchange is very, very necessary, and also to give the right incentives, I think, to the businesses to invest in this area in China and in Germany, and also to give the right incentives and also the room for international cooperation to reach the climate goals, because we can just reach them within international cooperation. Nobody can do it alone. So we reached actually our time. We just maybe started the discussion. You always have the feeling when you start to discuss about this topic, you're always at the beginning, which we are, but it's necessary to do so. So I just can warmly thank you all, also the participants who have joined listened to our session, and thank you very much to Ms. Sui, Mr. Ni, and Mr. Wuttke. It was a very interesting session, and also see how from the business point of view, how these targets can be actually really reached and be implemented. And saying that, we reached the end of the session. Thank you very much again. And we would continue after a short break with the next panel about digitalization. Thank you very much again.